I'm a scientist. And as a scientist, I like to look at coffee from a different angle. So I'd like to illustrate this with a little movie. So what you're hearing is the sound of crema. And what you saw were the little bubbles in the crema that were bursting. Now, the crema is a very important aspect of espresso coffee. It's important for a barista because he will judge the quality of his extraction based on the crema. For a consumer, the crema is also very important because it's a big part of his ritual of consuming the coffee. So some people, they will spoon the crema off the cup. Some people, they will actually stir it into the cup. Personally, when I drink my espresso, just before I finish it, I'll swirl it around to make sure the last bit of crema gets into the liquid coffee before I finish my cup. So at Nespresso, we have an extraction system that makes espresso coffee with crema. We know that this crema is very important for our consumers, and we use this in our communications. What we did not know was how the crema impacts the overall sensory experience of the consumer. So from the visual aspect, the smell and the taste of the coffee. So we decided to take a scientific approach to better understand how the crema impacts the overall sensory experience of the consumer. So I will talk you through the sample space, the research approach that we took, the experiments that we did, then I'll show you some results, and finally, how all of this impacts the appreciation of the consumer. We wanted to do a systematic scientific study. For this, we had to create a sample space where the base of the coffee was exactly the same, but we had a different amount of crema on each of our coffees. So we used one blend, a commercial blend. It's a strong roast, and we extracted it one time with our standard espresso machine. And this gave us a nice quantity of crema on the cup. We wanted to increase the amount of crema, and to do this, we had a prototype developed which could extract the coffee at a higher pressure. And with this higher pressure, we could pretty much double the amount of crema on the cup. We also had to reduce the amount of crema, and to do so, we used a filter. We placed the filter on top of the cup, so that the coffee, when it was extracted, it went through this filter. So we had a quite coarse filter that would reduce the crema by about half. And we used a more fine filter that would completely take the crema off the cup. And with monadic sensory profiling, we controlled that the liquid of all the coffees were exactly the same. It was only the amount of crema that was changing from one cup to the other. So we had 4 cups from going no crema at all to a large amount of crema. We could have done this study by sensory science, consumer research, but we decided to take a different approach to better understand how the crema impacts the consumer appreciation. So we decided to split our sensory experience into 3 parts. We have the observational part, the smell, and the taste of the coffee. For the observational part, we did a consumer science study. For the smell, we did an aroma analysis study, and for the taste, both a sensory and an aroma analysis study. Next, I'll explain this approach in more detail before we move on to the results of the study. So we wanted to understand how the crema generates expectations on the cup. We did a consumer research study in France. So we had French consumers. They were all regular espresso coffee drinkers. And we divided them into 3 groups. The first group was only allowed to visually observe the coffee, and they were asked, what do you expect this coffee to taste like? The second group, they were allowed to taste the coffee, but they were blindfolded. So they had no visual information, only in-mouth information. And they were asked, what does this coffee taste like? And the third group, they did a standard tasting, so they both had the visual observation and the in-mouth information. And by doing this study, we could understand how the visual information would generate expectations and how this impacted the overall sensory experience. To understand the smell of the coffee, we used a methodology called PTRMS, which stands for Proton Transfer Reaction Mass Spectrometry. And As you know, aroma consists of many different aroma compounds. What this PTRMS methodology does is it breaks down this smell of coffee into individual compounds. When you're smelling a coffee over a certain period of time, the smell of the coffee changes. So what we did here, we extracted the coffee into a closed cell, and then we sampled air from the headspace. And we injected it into PTRMS, and we could see how the different molecules changed over time when we had a varying amount of crema on the cup. So we could see how the crema impacted the smell of the coffee. So finally, we wanted to see the in-mouth information, and here we used the sensory methodology called CDS, which stands for Temporal Dominance of Sensation. So what we did here, we had a trained panel, and they were consuming the coffee in 7 sips. So they did 1 sip, waited for 30 seconds, a second sip, 30 seconds. So in 3.5 minutes, the coffee was consumed. And in each of the sips, they were asked, what is the dominance in this specific sip? And this way, you get information about the dynamics of the whole cup. And an experiment could look something like this. You have one aromatic note that is dominant in the beginning, another one in the middle, and a third one at the end. And we wanted to combine this with an analytical method. So here's a picture of Philippe. Philippe is a scientist in the research center. And in the research center, they always come up with fantastic new ideas how we can evaluate our coffees. So he's illustrating how you can measure the aroma release retronasally upon drinking the coffee. So he has little tubes injected in his nose. So when he's drinking his coffee, the aromas, when they're retronasally going into the nose, and we're sampling his nose. And the nose space, it goes into the PTRMS, and we see how the aromas change as a function of time when he's drinking the coffee. So we used the same panelists as did the sensory study. So they were drinking the coffee in 7 sips, and we could see how the aroma release in the nose was changing depending on the amount of crema.